the theme, and today we dwell on the theme of empowered by the risen Lord. Empowered by the risen Lord. And for that we look today on Mary's encounter with the risen Lord. Mary Magdalene was a woman who we do not have a ton of information. And Magdalene means that she came from a town of Magdala, a fishing town on the western shore of Sea of Galilee. The first time, I don't know, maybe you have read about it, the first time Mary is mentioned by name in the New Testament is Luke chapter 8 verse 2, where we are told that Jesus had cast seven demons from her. Then we see that she may have been a woman of great wealth, because in verse 3, Luke chapter 8, it is implied that she was one of the many who were supporting the ministry of Jesus with her possessions. Of course, we have a biased idea that Jesus only had 12 disciples. No, Jesus did not only had 12 disciples, Jesus had many other disciples. And Mary Magdalene was a prominent one, and she was one of the ones who was supporting his ministry. The God also tells us that Mary Magdalene was delivered from 7 demons, as I said before. In the Bible, the number 7 was often used to denote what? Completeness. So when Luke says Luke was a doctor, and when Luke says she was possessed by 7 demons, she was completely and totally being controlled by the evil forces. That's what it means. And we don't know for certain how this demon possession manifested in Mary. And we would be wrong to assume that her possession manifested itself in any moral degradation, such as prostitution, which seems to be the popular misconception. And we have no reason to believe that she was in that kind of a lifestyle. More likely it is resulted in some physical or emotional infirmity or instability, as in the case of demon possessions manifested in the scriptures. And she is not, unfortunately, the woman caught in adultery and brought in front of Jesus. She was not the woman who anointed Jesus' feet at the dinner party. And being said that, Mary Magdalene has been characterized, of course, Mary Magdalene has been characterized as a voluptuous, immoral woman by popular culture and film industry. I'm sure some of you have studied Wallathol's Magdalene Mariam. How many of you studied that in college? Wallathol's Magdalene Mariam. You did not go to college or school? It is kind of a famous, rendition of literature. And he is describing the shape and the beauty of her in more of an erotic and sensual manner. And probably some of you have heard about the last temptation of Jesus Christ. That was one of the acclaimed but critical Hollywood movies, and Barbara Hershey played as Mary, which became a very controversial film. And again, in modern movies, she is depicted as a prostitute, like the movie called Prison. And I'm bringing all these things because we don't have to worry about these things. This is non-biblical. And we don't subscribe to any such notions. But what we focus here on, that Jesus healed her from the problems. And no wonder these women, and especially Mary, followed Jesus. And Jesus had given her freedom and God's unconditional love. Told that Mary was wealthy. We don't know anything about her husband or family, but she was quite wealthy. whatever her support was to Jesus was given out of love. And Mary's deliverance from the devil and her call to follow our Lord were the defining moments or defining juncture in her life. Then we see, at first we see her in John's Gospel. Then where do we see her? We see her at the foot of the cross. She stands with Jesus' mother and other women, and what an unusual place for women to be, isn't it? Have you ever thought about that? These 3-4 women at the most gruesome place, gruesome actions are taking place, and they were there. And crucifixion is not a woman's place, it's a place of suffering, blood, and death. And Mary looks at the cross, 3 crosses standing before her, and she watches Jesus die. And can you imagine what a horrible sight it was? And at the same time, it was also a meaningful thing. How could this have happened? Jesus, who gave her freedom, now bound to a cross. Jesus, who gave her life, now dead. And then we see her at the burial, Mark chapter 15, verse 47, we see that. And Mary accompanies Joseph of Arimathea as Jesus' lifeless body is taken down from the cross. And she watches Joseph wrap Jesus' body in the linen cloth and goes with them to the tomb. And as they go, she may have quickly prepared Jesus' body for a quick burial, because the Sabbath time was just fast approaching. You know that once the Sabbath set in, you cannot do any work. You're not supposed to embalm, you are not supposed to do anything. She and others would have just prepared something, put on the book, complete the rest of the burial preparations on Sunday morning after the Sabbath. And finally, she sees a stone, and as she was watching this process going on, she finally sees a huge boulder being rolled at the entrance of the tomb, and then Roman soldiers walking to guard it. Then finally, we see Mary at the empty tomb. On Easter morning, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb at the crack of the dawn. The women with her were discussing who is going to roll this huge boulder away from the mouth of the cave. But as they approached the cave, they saw the stone had been rolled away. And we all know the story. The stone is moved, but Jesus' body is nowhere to be found. And all she could think was that some grave robbers have stolen the body of Jesus. So she was perplexed, she didn't know what was going on. She ran back to the disciples. And Mary is especially mentioned by name in 4 Gospels, make it a point to mention that Mary was at the tomb. So she must have been an important part of the ministry of Jesus. And in all places, Mary is mentioned first. Although she was first recorded contact with the resurrection Lord. And we have someone we know, Jesus very well. And as I said, Jesus is known to her, and she knows Jesus very well. And that's where we enter into this tomb with Mary. First of all, we see, we had to go back into the first 10 verses also to get the clear picture of what is happening on the Easter Sunday. First is Mary's moment of realization. As I said, crucifixion of Jesus was a trying time for the followers of Jesus. Remember, all the other followers, all the disciples, male men have just disappeared, vanished. And can you imagine the emotional roller coaster people like Mary had when they experienced what they saw? What they saw on the cross was the most gruesome thing that must have happened in their entire life. And Mark chapter 16 verse 1 tells us that Mary, the mother of James, as well as Salome, who was the mother of the sons of Zebedee, were watching Jesus dying on the cross. The most gruesome picture you can imagine. And this group of women were some of the most prominent female followers, as I said, of Jesus. And these women have experienced and saw and heard so many wonderful things from Jesus. And now they are there watching the Romans kill him on the cross. So this had to be a confusing time for these women, because questions came to their mind. Wasn't Jesus the long-awaited Messiah? Was he not the Son of God? And he claimed that he is Son of God and all those things. Isn't he what he is supposed to be? And they've experienced and heard and saw, and then they watched their hopes and dreams came crashing down. However, on Sunday morning they came to the tomb. And as I said before, they witnessed a supernatural thing. The boulder is rolled away from the tomb. And I just want to ask you a question. Did you ever stop to wonder why that stone was rolled away? Any idea why the stone was rolled away?
Because Jesus was risen.
Huh?
Jesus was risen.
Resurrection power.
Why that stone was rolled away?
He was risen in his body, so
Remember, he has a risen body. Why did that stone roll away? If your little child comes and asks why that stone was rolled away, what would you answer? Was it for Jesus to get out, sneak out?
For the people, to make the people believe.
Yes. And Jesus did not need that doorway to be open, because he is risen. He can pass through anything. He has a glorified body. Remember, afterwards he passed through the closed doors and all those things. He just came to the midst of the disciples and stood there. So he didn't need an open door. And when Jesus was raised by God from the dead, he could walk out. He could just appear outside. And it tells us that in the Bible that there was an earthquake and the stone was rolled away. It was for Mary, it was for John and Peter to go and see that it is empty. It was so others could get in and see that Jesus was gone, Jesus is not there. And if anyone asks you that question, please remember to answer this way. Anyway, Mary in confusion leaves the site and head back to the town to tell Peter and John and other people. Somebody has taken the body of Jesus. John chapter 20 verse 1 and 2. That's what she tells them. And at the message of Peter and John, they started running to the tomb. And why she said like that? Maybe because she had no concept that Jesus was alive. She had no hope that Jesus was alive, because her eyes and the logic told her that it is not a possibility. Resurrection is not a possibility. Now, Peter and John runs to the tomb. And they came and investigated. They looked into the tomb. The body is not there. And like any faithful man, they leave. They go back home. But Mary stood there, and then she sees two angels sitting where the body of Jesus was laid. Verse 12. The woman, why are you weeping? Answer to them was indicative of her belief that Jesus' body had been stolen. Verse 13. She says, they have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him. And she was under the belief that some tomb pirates, some scavengers have taken the body of Jesus. But Jesus was standing next to her, by her side, and as she turns her head and sees him, but she could not recognize him. That's when we see second Mary's moment of faith, verse 11 to 15. And as I said, Jesus was standing next to her, and she could not understand, she could not recognize him, because what she saw happen to Jesus overrode all the faith, all her faith. So angels ask her, why is she crying? Why is she crying? And she goes right back to the story of the tomb pirates. And at this point, Mary cannot believe he is the Messiah. She just wants the body. That's all she wants. She says, I'll take the body home, or whatever it is. Because she knows that she loves Jesus, and that love and devotion motivates her to take the dead body and go home. Of course, you can see the devotion and love towards him. And what drives us to believe in Jesus, and of course after 2,000 years, what makes us to believe in Jesus? We also have the same experience. Jesus' body is not there. We don't go to see Jesus' tomb to see his body. And that is for our witness, that is for our benefit, that it is kept open. How many people just turn their back on Jesus when they feel he let them down? That's what happened in the life of Mary. She stands there, thinks that he let her down. She thought he is the Messiah, the Son of God. But now he was dead, and now the body is also gone. For Mary, all her hopes had come tumbling down. Friends,